Hey everybody, Jay Barrino here. It's the weekly mutation / topic discussion with Subsourian. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
We're-
Time, well, not long time. A few weeks no see.
Yeah, we're back. We recorded last week's with no audio, so I think we'll probably end up tacking that onto the end of this one. It's going to be weird. It's a double feature backwards for you.
Yeah. What even was last week? Was that Wheel of Misfortune?
It was Wheel of Misfortune. So that's probably one it's not conducive to like chatting. So I think in the future we discussed just playing these with no audio and then talking over them.
Yeah, because it's hard. It is genuinely difficult to have a deep discussion while doing a lot of these mutations.
Exactly.
Especially with the staging.
So today's our transition week where we're going half and half. We're just going to play the game like normal and not bother ourselves with another topic, and then we'll watch the video of us playing last week and talk about our topic.
Yep, that sounds good.
So,
go Lazy Minsk.
Okay. So does that mean Earth Splitter's in our base?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. Earth Splitter with Toxic Tyrant. That gets me a lot of cooldowns if I have Earth Splitters.
Okay. Do you mind if I play my level 10 then?
Yeah, sure. I think it'll be fine.
I hope so.
Really, as long as you're on top of things, this mutator shouldn't be too difficult. Just not getting caught in a nuke is a big thing.
Yeah, I might just leave my galleons at home and just make Reapers and just run them around, and then they'll die, and I'll just make more.
That works.
And then just go strike fighter platforms.
That's always fun. Have them be your actual barracks.
Yeah, or I could go only Wraiths.
Yeah, that could work.
Easy to move around.
It's also really good against trains because of their frenzy bonus, basically.
Right. Oh, so I didn't mouse over them. I had someone actually last video ask me to at least mouse over the mutations, even though we're chatting more. So I apologize for that. When we get in the game, I'll mouse over them. And I did that last week too, where I didn't mouse over them on the menu, but I ended once we got in game, I moused over them. But this one is everything explodes and you get feared.
You can check it out on the StarCraft wiki. Chill.
Do you keep track of every weekly mutation?
Yep, I cycle it every single Monday.
Wow.
I have to do it manually because there's no automated system for it. Not that it's any remote, it's not difficult to do. Just.
But now that they started cycling, I imagine it's easier.
You just copy the old one and paste it in.
Gotcha.
It's never been too hard because CTG's also done a rundown, so I've just copied a lot of his posts usually.
Got a contract you might want to
Yeah.
help me fill. Amon's using Tarsonis' old train system to ship some questionable Mobius cargo. I've been hired to destroy those trains, but I don't have the personnel to do it.
Do you want to try to take the expansions?
What do you say?
If I recall, the nukes won't hit the expansions, so we should be good with that.
I guess it's just the hybrid.
Yeah.
So enemies explode on death. There are nukes, and then taking damage causes our stuff to be feared.
Yep. What's going on? Too bad. If we're attacking it from 1,000 miles away, fear's not going to matter.
Right. So why don't you just go ahead and beat this for me, and I will.
I'll try.
Yeah, because I'm not. This commander is not good for this, considering my production leaving the base does not seem smart.
Yeah, I think you wouldn't be too bad on this. I mean, no worse than a lot of commanders. Tychus obviously is a good choice, but Tychus is good on everything, so that doesn't count.
Right. Well, it's just because you don't have to really watch him as much, you know?
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
It's easy to dodge nukes rather than having to control 100 different little units.
Right.
I think back in the day, this was Stukov by just not caring if I fell in a nuke.
That's how you play Stukov. You have to throw those units away.
Mm-hmm. And 3 units. Oh, right. I can actually...
Together we can destroy any foe.
Oh god, I forgot this, where I spawned is a little bugged. So my top refinery is actually just barely clipping where one of the nukes will land.
Oh, no. Well, have fun.
It's okay, they'll fix it, right?
I wonder I mean, I don't really wonder. I know that, like, you think, like, is there ever going to be, like, literally anything ever again?
Yeah, so they definitely said they're going to change the map pools and fix any bugs that pop up. And, I mean, the classic games team is still around, so, and I think it's still K.O. Miller leading it. But, so, I expect if, like, there's something glaring, we'll definitely see something. But only if it's super obvious.
They fixed the Zagara bug thing, yeah. I think it's just like they probably lost the people most familiar with stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Steel yourself.
And we've discussed, like, the minutiae of that, but... my soldiers... Oh, you got mines. We're good.
It's a little late on those, sorry.
All good.
So it's Terran mech.
Yeah, classic mech.
Pew pew!
The last bug fixes they made for co-op was they fixed the composition description to spell Kaprulu right, which is something I've been yelling about for years. So
A lot of people add an R. I hate it. Is that what you're talking about? What?
No,
Stop it.
They swapped the R and P. It was
Okay.
Kaprulu or something like that.
Gotcha. No, a lot of people type it as Core Prulu. It's Kaprulu, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Sometimes
no,
I think
that was
I'm crazy.
No, you're right. You're right.
You sweet dogger.
Oh, right. We actually need to.
Kill the train, yeah.
Yes, I don't have much up yet.
It's alright, I'll sacrifice stuff to get this one.
I'm unfortunately a little bit behind.
I'd love to help. I can go
You got a pretty good, yeah.
space crash.
Our enemies are
Personal
mustering.
treasure.
Prepare yourself.
Almost there.
Minerals. Defend your allies.
God, the annoying part of nukes is you're afraid to look away from your army to macro.
Exactly. Well, and now we've got the attack wave coming in too.
Your soldiers
Yeah.
have engaged the enemy.
I'd rather focus on the train.
Yeah, no, we don't want to lose that. No, we got the tree pretty well.
Destroyed.
Okay, I'm gonna move my...
One of you wanted this
Nice,
over.
thank you. I don't have the ground on fire strike fighters yet, unfortunately, but
That takes a while to get, so no big.
Allies under threat. That's a no construction zone. What's going on? Defend your allies.
Thankfully, you're pretty good against these vultures.
yep. And like it's nice because like this comp doesn't have anything melee. At least
Yeah.
I don't know if they get Hellbats later or what, but
no,
it's
no, it's all stuff that's only appeared in StarCraft 1. So.
okay. Cool.
They've loaded up another train. Make sure that cargo doesn't get delivered.
Okay, I'm down here and can start hitting it unless you or like if you're getting ready to go.
I'm getting close. Oh god, I need to move my stuff a little closer in.
Stock up on
These
minerals.
nukes,
Yeah, they really cut close, don't they? I'm concerned about the hybrid spawning and attacking us up the ramps,
yeah,
specifically at
I
our
can get some,
expansions.
I can get some Royal Guard out to help with that.
This war leaves no room for civilians.
Commence precision strike. I think some cloaked forces are nearby.
There you go.
Get some detection out there.
Your allies' base.
Oh gosh.
Contaminated
Spawned on top of my.
Oh gosh, what are those? Just wraiths?
Yeah,
Okay.
but this actually decloaks them. So
Your upgrades all set.
Oh, the toxic. That's cool.
yeah.
I like the sound of that.
Your allies need some help. Enemies are striking your allies' base.
And like once you get a ton of, yeah, it's gonna kill the train so fast.
Objective has been
Yeah.
destroyed.
Ha! That was charming. Oh, look, something's coming to murder us again.
Oh yeah, my supply depots behind my base are getting hit.
Oh, jeez.
So irritating.
Yeah, no kidding.
Go, go, go! Strike underway.
Oh, nice. Oh, didn't mean to do
Base is
that.
under attack. Stay frosty.
See, we got this.
Yeah, you just get some detection on your ramp, or rather, I can for you. That would be fine.
Yeah,
Looks
I
like they've
got
got
it.
another
Ow.
shipment leaving the station. Let's cause some delays.
I had not gotten the range, that'd be why.
Big job, huh? SCV ready. Overtime.
Try building somewhere else, alright?
Like I guess I'll get my little fighter guys too. Like I don't.
The fighter guys?
Yeah.
Starfighter platforms?
No, the
The time, fighters.
the fighter bays.
Oh,
So are you able to legit kill the trains?
Yeah.
Okay.
if I get enough of them.
There's a train booking
Haven't
on the
quite
bottom
hit it
track.
yet.
If you want to catch it, you're gonna have to move fast.
Just have to be a little careful because it's not super reliable, but it'll do the.
Like I can add the extra bits of damage,
Yeah. You got a lot
And-
more focus damage.
and I can probably go get the bonus.
SCVs are in trouble.
Yeah, see, it's the stupid hybrid spawns that are.
Yeah.
Alone guarantee our
The race are the annoying part for me.
Enemies are striking your allies' base.
God, especially with these coming up the side.
They're attacking your base. Allies under threat.
I can make turrets for you up there eventually. I want to get the bonus.
everything we have built.
Oh, yep. I'm coming. Sorry, I just dealing with a bunch of them on the side. Actually, why did I just put a witness up? It's been a sec since I played Manx.
Toxic Tyrant is really fun and good, for sure.
Attacking your base.
Fire.
I'll get this attack wave.
Commence precision strike. Strike underway. Go, go, go!
I'm coming back.
Yeah, they did. Just set up some.
Trains are departing from both stations.
Alright, I'll get
Gotta
top.
move fast to hit them both.
Need more supply depots.
Okay, now it's double trains.
Yeah, thankfully with less health, so it shouldn't be the worst.
Okay.
Alright.
Complete.
Yeah, you've already got it like over halfway dead, and it's not even it's not even out of there yet.
Manx
Go, go,
pretty
go.
good.
Yeah, and then the extra units that are gonna come out to the side here, but I can help with that.
It's all
My
styles.
fleet is ready for deployment.
Oh, I don't have the fear yet. That's the downside of prestiging. I keep forgetting what I don't have.
Yep.
Looks like we're making good progress. We've knocked over roughly half the shipment.
Okay.
Your soldiers have engaged the enemy.
Oh, I lost 2 of my galleons.
Allies under threat. Your allies' base is being attacked.
I got a nuke during all this nuking.
I would say, where's the actual nuke? Okay, you got it.
I got it.
Oh, there's one on mine too. Okay, I got him.
Your forces have
Oh lord.
Now we have to kill the actual train.
defend your allies.
Begin the attack.
Oh, almost the hockey helmets.
Enemies are heading for us. Don't let them catch you
The
off
moderately frustrating thing about Earth Splitters is there's no animation for them being on fire, so it's hard to tell if one's in the range of burning down.
Yeah.
Nuke incoming. Has anyone seen Nova?
Come on.
It's fun, isn't it?
Allies under threat.
I don't have any strike fighters.
Oh, that one's gonna land, I think. The downside is just these freaking air units, which I can't do much about.
Normally, I'd encourage robbing a train like this, but with these guys, it's probably safer to light it up.
Well, as long as you could just keep with the trains, I can just.
Okay. Yeah, if you're still feeling good about it, I was just a little worried that
Again, as long as you can get the trains, just keep it up, even though you lost a bunch of workers and stuff. I can give you... Oh, no, I can't. That doesn't work in this mode, does it?
Nope. Oh, yeah, you just came off of 3v3.
Yep. That was surprisingly fun.
Yeah, back in college we used to do a ton of that. Back in Wings.
Yep. Likewise.
I can just bring up these for workers.
I'd love to help. A space platform is ready to spice up these battles.
Oh, thank you for those turrets.
Uh-huh.
Oh god, they're radiating my troopers as they go in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not friendly for us.
Yeah, this isn't the worst comp, but it's not.
It's pretty bad.
Fight our opponents in the field, or we'll be fighting them at home.
Again, as long as you can actually kill the train, which it looks like you will.
Yeah, we got it.
The last double train might be difficult, but...
Objective has been destroyed.
There's nothing we cannot do, husband.
Yeah, as long as you can get those battle cruisers, that's a lot of science vessels, but
Yep.
I can deal with
That's
the
really bad for my... Because I just have a bunch of Reapers. Like, it's really bad.
Yeah. Actually, wait, why did I just get the Vikings out? Though I actually don't know if I have the bonus to massive or that's I use their makes Vikings so little.
Yeah, I don't think we can get that till later.
Where'd that nuke come from?
I killed...
You got it.
Yeah. Again, just keep it up with the trains. Oh my gosh. Give it a rest. With the it's just like the normal nukes are just infuriatingly irritating.
Got it. Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I should be a critical mass.
Okay.
Rather late.
Hey, as long as you can do it now, it's fine. Man, they keep just trying to send in these flippin' ghosts up here. I feel like I'm just like barely surviving, let alone able to attack the trains at all. You know?
Yeah, I definitely get that.
Main objective destroyed.
I mean, as long as you're holding on, I seem to be able to.
Minion fleet can disembark anytime. Initiating fleet maneuvers.
These ghosts, I swear to God. Why are there so many of them?
Terran comps.
Add-on complete.
Warning. A main objective is escaping.
Your forces have allies have enemies are striking your base under assault. Your allies
God, yeah, I'm really missing having fear.
Huh.
Main objective.
I'm sorry, it's just like I'm just stuck in the base. I can barely.
No, you're good. You're good. We're clearing the objectives. All is
The
good.
warehouses should be looking real empty right now.
We just say screw the bonus, yeah.
Yeah, we're on the last one, so as long as you can get rid of that attack wave,
stay frosty.
I'll just keep
Enemies are striking your allies'
keep going.
base.
Ready to plunder.
Your allies' base is being attacked. Base under assault.
Okay, well, if they want to go up there, that's fine.
Sure.
SCV's under attack.
I just wanted my extra XP for this commander that I've been leveling, you know?
No, same. I'm now on Manx, which is usually a fun one. I've been really liking. I'm on his third one, and it is insanely fun.
Mexican General is just great.
Yeah.
Enemies inbound.
As I brought up, it's just a shame they've gotten their stride, I think, and then everyone left for Frost Giant.
Yep.
Nuclear
Oh,
launch
well.
detected. Base
Oh my god, these freaking nukes.
I know, like, this is more than usual, it really feels like, doesn't it?
That is the mutator, but not in the way we thought.
Yeah, not that one.
Your allies' base.
Yeah, we got this though.
That's fine. I'll just play super sloppy and...
This is just one of many problems.
Okay, there we go. Good work.
Yeah, they spawned the penny train.
I was waiting for all the, I was waiting for you to lose all your Earth Splitters to that last nuke, and then we lose.
I was expecting to hit the hotkey and suddenly have 2 Earth Splitters. How many times I had to move troops up for that ghost?
Yeah.
Because they always do it like when you have a certain cluster of buildings. So if you put it wrong, like I did, they'll nuke your detection instead of the cluster, and it'll be just out of range.
Mm-hmm.
All right, 3.5 levels. I certainly won't say no to that.
Yeah, that was nice for me as well.
Finally got all of the Zerg unlocked, which would have been nice.
Okay, so I'm gonna turn off the music and the sound, and then I'm going to open up the video from last week and just play it and record it, and we could talk about whatever we want.
We're doing it live.
It's gonna be great. Let me make sure I can find the right one. I think it's... Oh yeah, this is the one.
Yeah.
Then I have
Wheel
to...
of Misfortune.
And then I have to change my screen capture to smart selection. And then we do this. And then we do... Oh, that's not it. The people watching this are like, what is he
What's even going on?
doing? We do this.
Well, I figured out. I actually have something to shill because it's been a few weeks.
Okay.
I finished, so I've been working on a compendium of all the short stories that they published because they deleted all of them from the website. They brought a few back, but there's massive gaps. They are missing a bunch. So I've been working with people to restore them. So now the restoration is done. So the lore server has, I think I even posted it in your server, but there's a PDF. I now have a PDF compendium of every short story. If you're into StarCraft lore, you should check it out. It's free. I'm proud of it.
That's great. Yeah. If you remember to post it on my post it in the video comments as well when you get there.
Yeah, I definitely will. I so rarely use my YouTube. I forget I actually can post on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Then we full screen. It's funny because people watching this, they're going to see a window on top of another window. Okay, there we go. It's going.
All right. Hooray.
So this is last week's mutation that you're all seeing. But anyway, it's still us from this week. So we wanted to talk about sound design in games, and we're going to use real-time strategy as sort of our lens, but I have other games that I can think of in particular.
I explicitly wanted to do real-time strategy because I feel it's more than most genres really, really, really important to do. And when we talked about asymmetry, we briefly touched on it, but there's been a lot of things, especially in later StarCraft 2, that made me realize how important it was. So, but I'll let you start if you have ideas of.
I find that sound, and I think I would include music in this. Is that fair? Or is that a totally different?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, all of it in general, just sound in general.
Yeah. So I find that sound design and music design actually is such a major part to all of the games that I consider the most important for me in terms of my formative years in gaming. And every game that I would put in my top 5 to 10 games of all time all have very particular sound design. Well, okay, so for example, when I think Mass Effect, I probably am not thinking as much about certain sound design. But so I think sound design started becoming extremely important probably around the in terms of consoles, in the 16-bit era. SNES, for example, is really important in terms of sound design, I think. So Donkey Kong Country is Yeah, a lot of those like old RPGs, but like for me specifically, I think Donkey Kong Country, that series was probably like the first like real gaming series that got me just gaming in general. That and like stuff like Doom and Dark Forces, which had like those old FPSs had music that was really, really important, and first-person shooters with like the sounds of the guns was really, really important. But then I think to like StarCraft and Brood War, for example, like and Warcraft 2 before that, like the sound design was, and I'm going to use this word a lot, was really evocative and memorable. And that might just be because I played these games in my formative years, but a lot of these sound effects packed a punch that made them memorable.
Right. I definitely, on a small tangent, I've always said Donkey Kong Country because I just played the third one, and I've always thought the sound, like music and sound, was almost too good for what it was trying to convey.
Yes, Danny Wise was incredible.
Yeah, it was genuinely great, but it's for like a kind of silly monkey game, and it sounds super like mystic and serious.
Yeah.
Not that that's bad, but I love that soundtrack, but it is ingrained in my head. But yeah, what you were bringing up with, especially with FPSs and RTSs, I feel, where you're going to spend like it's more important, I feel, for a game where you're going to be playing a lot of it and hearing the same sounds over and over. And RTS is especially very important because you need the sounds to be informative, but also not great if you hear them 10 million times.
Yeah.
And FPS is the same way. Like I think, especially a lot of arena FPS, but there's a reason that even like I see this in Overwatch when a line gets overplayed. The fact it gets overplayed and it isn't super fun to hear becomes kind of a meme, because you hear it over and over again.
Yep.
This recently came up to me because in later game StarCraft, of course, they introduced announcers, and to me, a lot of them were like especially a lot of the live announcers used like silly jokes that, especially humor that's off the cuff, works really well when it's off the cuff, but doesn't work the millionth time you supply block yourself.
Right. Yeah. Repetitiveness is important to think about.
And that's why I think the regular announcers, or even Abathur, or like a lot of the more bland regular ones, are considered better without like, because there's a simplicity to it, but also it's easy on the ears. But yeah.
I on that note, I guess to supplement that, I think that in terms of like unit responses and so like something like Age of Empires doesn't have like units that say things typically when they're selected, except maybe the workers. But what I would say, especially in like real-time strategy and unit selection and with those announcers, is it's way less about what they say and way more about how they say it. And
right.
to your point, you get a lot of these things that are like smarmy jokes, and you're like, oh, that's funny. But then after the 50th time, you're just like, shut up about it. And it's because like it's in that tone that's just sort of like, it kind of grates at you over time. And it's not something that's like palatable over a long period of time, which is what an announcer is for.
Yeah, Blizzard did the smart thing, and a lot of games have done this now, where all the smarmy jokes are the poke quotes, where if you just poke them a bunch of times, where you actively have to seek it out. Because it's fun to have, but you don't want it to be every single response ever.
Right.
And I've been a big on unit design or unit quotes. I've always been a big thing on storytelling through them because I'm obviously a story guy, and I feel Warcraft, StarCraft, I'd even say the later Command and Conquers do a good idea of conveying just in like accent, tone of voice, how they respond to you. Like you can basically tell an entire story of a unit and what they are through those quotes, and I think that's really. It's almost a unique thing to RTS. Actually, I wouldn't even say unique to RTS. Like, I'm thinking back to Halo with, like, enemy unit responses. But RTS is especially where it's apparent.
Yeah. Well, I guess to get into some specific examples, I think the sound design of StarCraft 2 is quite good, but I would still say the original StarCraft is more evocative.
Yeah.
That's 2. And I'll give you an exact example, and if anyone here who's watching has played both games, I feel like there's almost no way you can contest this. The Zealot. In StarCraft 2, the Zealot and Zergling both, really. In StarCraft 2, they made the Zealot try to make it a little more realistic in the sense that it has side blades and it's slicing through things. So you have more of a slicing sound, but that also overlaps with many other sounds of units that are attacking. Like if you only heard the Zealot attacking but couldn't see it, and someone said, well, what units are on screen right now, but you can't look at the screen, I feel like, if you played the game a ton, you might be able to guess Zealot, but it's way less standoutish. Whereas in the original, when those Zealots attacked, you knew those were Zealots, and and not only was it distinctive, but it was a satisfying, evocative, that's 3, sound that it elicited, like, this guy is just beating the crap out of things. It's just like he's taking swords and he's just bashing things with them. It was just very, like, his Zealot, he's just, like, mad. Like Carbot Zealot, right? He's just like, boom. Like, it had that like, gagoom, like, metal bashing sound. And there's something about that, again, I'm not, like, a sound engineer, but as a consumer, I can say, like, that is something that, like, really sticks with you, and it provides a satisfaction to what's happening on screen.
The grunt was always weird to me, though. I definitely liked the impact of it, but the grunt was, I never
Sure.
got.
Yeah.
So actually, that leads to a different point of something StarCraft 2 did well versus 1, which, because I think 1 had, because of the way it layered sounds, definitely everything had to have an impact, and I argue for a lot of them it's better, like you said. But one thing 2 does is, especially with lower tier units, a Marine's a good example. With a single, like when a Marine shoots, it's kind of wimpy. You hear like sounds like a patter.
Mm-hmm.
When a lot of Marines shoot, it's layered in such a way to where it sounds like a wave of bullets. Like you hear, all of them are layered on top of each other in a way that sounds like you increase the power of what you're doing, basically. And Zerglings are the same way. Not so much with Zealots. I haven't really noticed that kind of layering. Whereas with StarCraft 1, because and I'm not a sound engineer, so I don't know if that's the channel or not. Everything's basically on the same tier of sounds. So a Marine has to sound like a Marine shooting, no matter how many Marines are shooting. You can't. But I thought that was an interesting way to kind of, through sound, convey how strong your force is.
I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because that was something I was going to bring up, like, of really important individual sounds. We've made strides in audio layering and sound channels to the point where you can do something like that. And it makes me wonder if, perhaps, interestingly enough, because we didn't have that same type of audio technology in the past, they made every sound design more weighty, evocative, if you will. And as such, because they couldn't really be layered, so, like, again, you didn't have, like, the impact of one versus many. At the same time, though, I guess what I'm questioning is I almost think that it's the old way was still better. I'm not sure. It's hard to say, because, like, you clearly sacrifice something with both methods. And it seems like there's not really a good way to do both.
It really depends on what you're trying to go for. I think for gameplay, the two is probably better, but I can recognize, like, if you showed me the clip of, like, any unit firing in StarCraft 1, I'd probably recognize it. And 2 would be a little harder, because a lot of them are, like, doesn't sound as... But then again, there are very evocative, take a drink if you're playing sounds, and, like, I'd say the Marauder shot is very, like, impactful and evocative. Everyone, if you hear it, you know what it is. But I don't know. I think there's a happy medium, and you can do it. But there's actually that same thing with music that they've argued. Like you mentioned 16-bit, but going so far back as like Mega Man and the 8-bit, or because they had less to work with in terms of sound channels, they've had to make something impressive within the limits and basically make everything that they could better, catchier tune, like that kind of stuff, because they didn't have much to rely on.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I don't want to say, because, like, there's this sentiment, especially among people our age, where it's kind of like, everything that we grew up with was better. Everything, but that's a fallacy. It's like the good old days. It's not necessarily true. Like, there's definitely advantages. But it is interesting, though. You can take lessons from back then and see, like, okay, well, they were so limited that they found interesting ways to elicit certain emotions from the player using less. And I think that can be learned from at the very least.
And to stress, there's still a lot of games still do argue, I would say, more impressive and more catchy sound design than back in the day. It's just that those are good examples, especially overcoming the limitations they had. And there's something to say about, like, even the I'd say flaws of the 8-bit and 16-bit era in their sound design to the point where an entire genre was spawned because people like hearing chiptunes, the bleeps and bloops, basically.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a nostalgia to that you can't really you can capture in modern games, but it can be seen as a bit of pandering.
Yeah. Talking more focus on the StarCraft side of things, because like I've got other games to move on from, but since we're mostly on StarCraft now, I want to talk about the like StarCraft 1 Zerg versus StarCraft 2 Zerg, and this isn't just sound, but it's like kind of in general how they changed. Because I guess working backwards, I feel like StarCraft 2 Zerg were bugs.
So this actually has to do a lot, and this is my theory, with the perception of Zerg versus how they actually were in one. Because in one, they're bug-like, but they're reptilian. There's like a bunch of different, and their structures look like someone cut up a guy and put a bunch of organs on a purple mat or a purple like carpet, basically. It's very alien and it's bug-like because there's a lot of numbers. But because it's the swarmy race, everyone thought, oh, it's the space bugs. And I think that sentiment went into 2.
Exactly. Yes. So that's
the space bugs.
That's exactly what I was going for here. So for 2, bugs. For 1, I don't know if this is the right term, but you kind of touched on it with like it's purple carpet with organs. Like I almost feel like it was like almost playing on a bit of body horror.
Oh, definitely.
In the sense that it was more just like flesh. Everything was alive. All the buildings were alive and like big organs, right? It wasn't necessarily bug-like, but that was the perception that came across because, again, like you nailed it. So I don't need to reiterate that. So the thing with the sound design, though, the big difference, though, is I feel like 2's Zerg sound design doesn't necessarily have a central theme because of that. It became a lot more like carapace clacking, I suppose. In 2, and like more like bug, like kind of like voice sounds, like with the queens and stuff. Whereas in 1, the sounds, again, if I'm thinking more like body horror, like fleshy goop monsters, and everything kind of had that like grumbly, gurgly sound, and it was just more consistent and fit a general theme, as opposed to 2, where it's less. I feel like the theme is less so.
Also a lot sharper, like a lot harder on the like. More shrill and harder on the ears. And this actually, like, this will lead into something I say about Protoss, but I'll stick with Zerg for now. Yeah, definitely they simultaneously tried to create a unifying theme, because a lot of the Zerg's sound design in 1 is very different, depending on what they're trying to do. Like, Hydralisk versus Mutalisk is pretty sharp. But at the same time, you're right, they kind of erased identity. Now it's, what can we find that's disgusting? Like, I can't remember if it was there was a nice little run through of how they made a bunch of the sounds of like, oh, the sound of hand soap through hands, put through some filters, and interesting like ways they got it from it. But I feel like just the idea we need to make something gross, it didn't really carry the same weight. It's just kind of gross. That's like, yeah, bleeps or bloops and bleeps from infestors and
yeah. I think it's, I don't know, maybe it was like they couldn't quite recapture what they had, but yeah, in the first one, like, I felt like the Zerg were, like, genuinely, like, macabre and gross, and in 2, you're like, okay, they're bugs, and, like, they tried to make the infestors, you know, be goopy and gross, but I just don't get the same effect from it.
The biggest one with Zerg to me will always be the Overlord, because it was, like, in 1, it's very sharp and distinct, like, you have the Day 9 video of him imitating specifically the StarCraft 1 Overlord.
Yeah.
The StarCraft 2 one's pretty boring in terms of its sound design. I could also get into the structures design, but that's a thing for another day, because I have many opinions, especially even on remastered structure design. But just with sound, I definitely think something was lost in both appeasing the cultural identity of the Zerg and trying to also make something new but gross. I don't know. There's some good ones, but...
Oh, yeah, so this isn't me saying, like, everything is worse, but I just wanted to point out that, like, I feel like the general, like, centralized theme of Zerg in 1 was reinforced much more heavily by sound design than it is in 2.
And so, to move it on with Protoss, because this is something I have strong thoughts on with the move. In 1, they made a very distinct point of making them... There's a filter over all the unit voices that makes it very difficult to hear. But it sounds alien because there's that filter.
Yeah.
Definitely. In 2, they've tried to make it very clear what the Protoss were saying. Like, you especially with the Dark and High Templar, like, but it loses that alien mysticism you had in 1 when you made it really clear what they're going to say. And it's something that actually, you would only find this in the Wings of Liberty and some of the Heart of the Swarm units. In Legacy of the Void, for the units, they definitely learned that they can do a bit more with the filter, but it was a little too late because a lot of those units are the campaign exclusive ones and the ones that no one picked.
Right.
I love the Mirage voice, and no one uses it outside of Direct Strike.
And when we talk about sound design, I think the most important thing to think about when it comes to sound design, and I'll circle back to the Protoss thing that you're talking about as well, is it's meant to elicit a certain emotion. I feel like that's what sound design contributes to. It's meant to elicit an emotion. That's what I mean when I say evocative. And so all I can talk about, like, from a consumer perspective, again, not being a sound designer or like a creative designer, but I can say, like, the Protoss sound design, for the reasons that you described from the original StarCraft, was more like, I don't know if this is the right way to describe it, but like it was almost more uncomfortable than it was comfortable. And again, like you said, it's because it's alien, and also this was a race that was described as kind of like in its twilight years because of how superstitious and stupid they've become. Like, it's this, they have, it's almost Lovecraftian in the sense that they have so much power and could do, like, contribute to so much destruction, but they're just like, they're like oblivious to the world around them to a degree because, again, they're so superstitious that, like, they could just wipe out things because they feel like it without realizing, you know, what they're destroying. And in a way, their sound design almost, it gave you like a sense of like a dark age technological society, which is kind of like the Eldar, which is what they were originally, right? And I think maybe that was part of it too, is like StarCraft 2, they tried to be maybe a little more distinct and get away from like the Zerger Tyranids. Even though I kind of think going more bug-like makes them more like Tyranids, but the Protoss were like less like Eldars and more of like, oh, they're a noble displaced race.
Yeah, though being fair, that was also what they were supposed to be in the manual, and the game made them more warrior-like. But that's one of the genius things I think in one did with Protoss is the units were all like that. Like, it was very uncomfortable, very distorted, sharp. But the heroes and the actual story sections, they made them super clear and easy to understand. And no one really noticed that or complained because, I mean, you want to hear what they have to say for the story sections, but you don't need to know what the Kalani that the carrier says is. And even so, it's become iconic. Like, a lot of the evocative, I should say, a lot of the line, even like Garrett's suits on the Dragoon, like a lot of just the random gibberish Kalani people will hear and know. I don't know. Yeah, but definitely from what you were saying, it was closer to what they were trying to do. The Dark Templar sounded like a stealth assassin, and in 2 they did not. That will always be my biggest example of a downgrade in sound design is the Dark Templar.
Well, it makes me wonder though, is it because the sound design got like, well, I don't know if worse is the right word, it changed like in a downgraded fashion and like they didn't hit what they were trying to do, or is it more that like what they were trying to elicit with the sound design was different between 1 and 2? Because again, the impression that I got from 1 is they wanted the Protoss, like, I think they knew the players thought that the Protoss would be this like super powerful, super smart, hyper intelligent race, but in fact they were like kind of stupid. Which was kind of the point of their campaigns, right? Like, they led to the downfall of their race because they were, like, pompous and, like, ignorant, and they, like, split apart their own race. And then in 2, they start coming back together, so it has to be more noble. They have to be more clear. They have to be more heroic.
I guess if heroic's what they're going, I was gonna say if I knew what they were going for, and High Templar definitely I could say is they tried to make it a more heroic figure. Because arguably in 1, like the High Templar didn't really match what it was trying to do with you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great example though.
But with a Dark Templar, it sounds like a dude. I have no clue what they were going with that one. It just sounds like a guy. Whereas 1, it was like it was very clearly a stealth assassin. Like, it's the kind of growling undertone, the almost whisper to it. Yeah, but you knew what it was. Just like, this was someone who's going to stab you in the shadows, just based on the tone of voice. Also a comment on Zeratul, but they really couldn't have done much about that. They needed to do actor. Yeah,
agreed. Like, I mean that just as like he almost. again, it's hard for me to articulate. All I can say is like how it kind of made you feel. Like Zeratul was like old man, like comforting old man, but like almost with like an air of like irreverence in a way, because he just was like, I've seen all this shit. Like it can't get worse. Like don't worry, we'll figure this out. Like things are bad, but like we're gonna get through this in a way. And he just like he was like almost like mumbling at you, not in a crazy way, but just like, we're doing this, all right? It's gonna be fine. We'll figure it out. Like you never got the sense of like Zeratul was afraid. He was just like, well, let's go, guys. I don't know. I don't know how else to describe it, but like they became almost comforting in a way, and they couldn't really recapture that.
The way even Metzen described it in 1 was a benevolent Darth Vader. Like he was a kindly. And I definitely liked that design. And in 2, this one, they actually had a reason, because they wanted to evoke more a like kindly old wizard kind of the person who's like driving the story, the quote unquote crazy old man who like actually knows what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they were trying with 2. It's a change of direction for the character though, so I think that, and also coming off of 1, I think that's why people were like, I don't like it quite as much.
Mm-hmm. I think all the voice acting for the most part was good. Like I don't like the voice direction of Zeratul, but I think all the voice acting is fine. Like I think Karax pretty much nails it. I mean, even though Talendar wasn't really the Phoenix voice that you would think, I still liked the weightiness that they gave him. I think Vorazun and Prison Lady.
Oh, Rohana.
Rohana, thank you. I think they're both great. I actually quite like Vorazun.
Yeah, Vorazun's great. Vorazun's one of those everyone's like, why is she in the game? And Denise, like, this is one of my favorite characters. I love this.
Yeah, she's great. I use her announcer when I'm Protoss. Yeah, she's just a very nice voice acting for sure.
Legacy of the Void in general, I think had some pretty good ones. I know a lot of people. A lot of people ragged on Artanis, and Artanis is the one voice I think improved between 1 and 2. I really don't like his voice in 1.
Mm-hmm.
It is not well acted. You can fight me in the comments.
So another term that I keep bringing up quite a bit is weightiness. So I brought up with like Phoenix there, but also like to bring up another game that I really like is Dark Souls. And so a lot of people, I know you haven't played these, so I'll try to keep this section brief. But a lot of people point out the difference between Dark Souls 2 compared to 1, 3, and Bloodborne. And I can say that while there's plenty of gameplay reasons, a major thing in terms of presentation is the sound design. And you notice if you listen to Bloodborne and Dark Souls 1 and 3, when you chug that Estus, it kind of has that same sound to it. It's got like a whoop sound to it if you listen for it. It's even when you do a Blood Vial in Bloodborne. And like footsteps on different surfaces, weapon impacts, again, they all have a weight to them. And I think that's just so... I think people might almost underplay the importance when they talk about the differences between Dark Souls 2 and the rest of the series. Where Dark Souls 2, I feel like a lot of the sounds are more muddled. Weapon impacts are like more squishy and strange. They don't have like a specific like smack or a smack effect, and when they do, it almost sounds like it's like muffled in a way. The only thing I could say is like people would have to go and try and listen to some of these to understand what I'm referring to, but talking about like my favorite games of all time, I would put Dark Souls in there, or the Dark Souls series in general, and a big part of that is like really evocative sound design. I think that's like incredibly important, and those games would be lacking a lot if they were missing that sound design for sure.
Oh, and even as a I think I can actually comment as a non-Dark Souls player, where there's like that wom sound that who've never played it, know it's Dark Souls. There's certain sounds from that game that I can just hear and know it because its sound design is so good.
Yeah.
And it also comes down, like, I've seen some of its weightiness. Like, I've watched a few of my friends play it, and yeah, you could definitely feel the impact. Like, you could definitely feel when you've gotten hit, and that's an important thing in that. I won't even call the genre, I guess, adventure, any kind of combat, really.
Mm-hmm.
You should feel if you hit or get hit, and the sound design, animation and sound design coming together really carry that.
And like, yeah, it's like when you swing and you hit a wall and it makes like a ching sound, it's like, again, it elicits that feeling of like, oh, like, no.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like nails on it. Kind of you get that like very miniature nails on a chalkboard, and that's the whole point. Like, if you swing and you hit a wall, there's never a time when you want to do that. So they add a sound that's like, it's very clearly like, oh, you fucked up.
Yeah, I've been keeping an ear out. I've been playing Horizon Zero Dawn, and that one generally has okay sound design, but I don't know if you know much about it, but the dinosaur fights they have, the robo dinosaurs, have just very distinct and impactful. Like when it hits, you know it, and I've been enjoying that part of it at least.
Mm-hmm. As I just started replaying Age of Empires 2, and I realized that the only voice lines are the villagers, which is cool because it's like in the different languages of the civilization you're playing. But each building does have like a very like sharp and quick sound when you click on it. And I noticed this is something pretty common in every real-time strategy. Is like every building has like a different, like Exego did this too. Like there's a very distinct and sharp and memorable sound. Like when you clicked on the barracks, you've got like the marching, but it's like very sharp and noticeable, and then it trails off pretty quickly. And that's the kind of stuff that I think every specifically real-time strategy really needs. You really need that to make, like, because if your buildings not only need to be visually distinct, but you can make them distinct, like when a player clicks on it, they know what they're selecting.
The StarCraft 1 Academy and be very distinct.
That one has always been weird to me, yes.
That's a really strange one. They haven't even explained it necessarily. Like, the theory has always been it's resocialization, but they've never actually said that. That's just what it's...
Yeah.
I assume it is.
That makes sense. I don't know if I ever even tried to imagine what it was supposed to be, other than StarCraft 1 was just a darker, macabre tone in general, of just these races throwing lives away, so I just felt like the general theme of the whole game, it just sort of matched that in a way.
Yeah, it was an example of one very out of place one. So, I guess iconic, but for the wrong reasons. I knew people were like, I was afraid to click on it because how scary it is.
Well, yeah, it was just weird, that's for sure.
Yeah, building ones have always been kind of... I'm thinking back to some of the other ones I played. There's a lot of RTS that just don't have a building sound effect. And I think it's a nice to have, but not super necessary. Like, if it's missing, thinking back, I've never been like, oh, I've noticed this building sound is missing. More so the units to me. Buildings have always been just kind of a nice to have.
Well, it's weird when you think, StarCraft 1, only some buildings had response. Like the barracks, I don't think had a response sound.
No, yeah. Actually, some of them did in the files. They just never actually got in the game.
Yeah. Like every Zerg building had a clickable sound, but not every Terran building did. In fact, I don't think any of the production structures did. But like the machine shop did, a lot of the research buildings did, but there were also Protoss buildings that didn't either. So it was weird.
I'm trying to think back which ones didn't. I think you're right.
I'm trying to think, like, did the Cyber Core or the Forge or the Gateway have clickable sounds?
Forge did. Gateway did not. That was the one. Okay.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. I knew there was one because most of them do. It's kind of odd. Then there's the few that are mismatched. Like I think it was Greater Spire and Hyde that were swapped.
Huh.
And there's two Zerg sounds. The Greater Spire one is swapped with something else. Oh no, it was the Filer Den. That was what it was. And if you click on it, you can hear like mutilous sounds coming from it.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Okay. I never knew that those were swapped, but that makes complete sense now that you say that.
Yep. Apparently, it's in the file names. I haven't dug that deep. People who know better have told me. But then again, like I guess you can get away with that, and people don't. if the sound's good enough, or if the sound direction is good enough and focused enough.
Yeah, but, circling back to what you said earlier, at the same time, if you have way too much coming at you at once, then it can kind of confuse the player and between what they're seeing and what they're hearing. So you have to have, like, an ability to layer it, and, like, if you're clicking on buildings very quickly, all those selection sounds are just blasting in on top of each other. Do you, like, cut them off short? Do you not have them? That's all a challenge.
You don't want them too long. And it goes back to also, you want your building to tell a story. Like, if you click a covert ops, it makes some, like, blurby sounds. Yeah. But you also want it to be non-intrusive. If there's an alert, you want to obviously take priority. But, yeah, it's all these different things that you got to mix in a pot And some games do it better than others. I think just having memorable but short, like you mentioned with Age of Empires, like it gives it a little bit of flavor.
For sure, yeah. My other example for real-time strategy is Command and Conquer, and when I think back to the people that watched me play that, you had a lot of veterans who were excited to watch me, a newbie to the series, play it, and a lot of the comments revolved around people joking about a lot of the voice lines. And that's the situation where it comes down to, again, like I mentioned, it's not about what they're saying per se, it's how the line is delivered and directed that really sticks with people, like the Kirovs and stuff like that.
Oh, Riddler 2. Yeah, I was thinking back to the first one where I remember every line, even though it's just vehicles, infantry, and the commando. And everyone loved the commando. Like they made a whole game because people like the commando line so much. But Riddler 2 had some fantastic sound design. It really was an example of what I was saying of telling stories. Like people remember conscript reporting, Kirov reporting. It gave every unit just a bit of flair in a game that's really not particularly story heavy. Like that's a good example if you don't need a deep lore to tell stories with a unit. It can just be like a really excited GI.
Well, yeah, you don't know what's gonna trigger the fan base to make it a memorable thing, and I would argue that of the real-time strategies that I've both played and am aware of, there's many that I know of that I've watched that I haven't played. I would say that all of the good ones have good sound design. Not to say I was going to say not to say you need good sound design to have a good RTS, but I would say actually no, absolutely that's true. You need good sound design to have a good game in general. I think it isn't like having only good sound design is not enough for a good game, but you need it if you want your game to be memorable and catchy.
Definitely, and I also think it factors into gameplay too, like trying to make your more powerful attacks feel like you just did a powerful attack. Like if for some reason I'm not looking on the screen and I hear a siege tank go off, I know the siege tank went off. I'm in trouble.
Yes.
And that's something I think some RTSs have stumbled a bit on, is even one to an extent, but where you really get excited and make like some really powerful low tier unit sound effect, and it sounds like it's going to be this like beam of death, and it's not really. It does like 2 damage.
Well, and that's going back to StarCraft with the Zealot sound. It's memorable, it's evocative, but is it really necessary for the tier 1 unit? You want to maybe reserve, like you want weighty noises in general, but like you said, the siege tank is a great example. You want to know when you get hit with a mondo amount of damage, the player should understand where that's coming from, either or both visually and audibly. And so like if there's siege tanks off the screen and you're getting hit by them, you should pretty much be able to hear the audio cue for it. It shouldn't be like poof, like, oh, that could have been anything. I don't know. Like, it should be pretty darn clear where it came from.
Right. And so going back, I tried a little bit of Homeworld, which I had never played before. And that was another thing I noticed, and this is me coming in as not a veteran, was audibly it was a little hard for me to tell what was coming from what direction and what actually was going on in terms of the sound design. And I think that's because it's supposed to be a much more, with the way you scroll out and all that, a much more visual RTS where the sound isn't as important. But that was notable for me.
Mm-hmm. I
had trouble with that. So it is important because that was part of the reason I stopped playing, and probably should go back to it.
Yeah, I played a few missions of Homeworld, and I made it to that stupid asteroid mission that everyone hates, and I haven't picked it up since. I plan to replay it again, either on stream or for videos. And it was a while ago, but I want to say I think I felt kind of the same way. I wasn't really thinking specifically about the audio, but it's true. When everything is just sort of happening, but you're not getting audio cues from anything. I mean, obviously visual cues as well, but like if you're not getting audio cues from anything, it just feels sort of wrong.
Yes, I agree.
Like Uncanny Valley.
And so on one hand, I definitely like it's made to be a grander scale RTS, so you're not really supposed to like train off of sound design. You're supposed to train off of looking at maps, and get like layers. But on the other hand, I think Stellaris did a good job with this, which is it's a grand strategy, and where what you fire feels impactful from your ships, and you can hear from what direction. And it's small because it's a grand strategy. You don't need the best sound design in the world, but it's welcome. I'll put it that way. Like, I know what's going on based on what I'm hearing.
Yes. I haven't played Stellaris, so I'm sorry, I don't really have any follow-up to that, but I'm aware, yeah.
Yeah, that was just an example of a side thing of how you can do that even in other genres.
Mm-hmm.
And FPS is another very important one, I think.
Oh yeah, gun impact sounds are like the most important part of player. The most important part that's tough, but it's like crucial. Like if you have a shotgun in your game and you're a first-person shooter, you gotta make it a good. It's gotta be a good chef's kiss shotgun sound. All right.
Yeah, that was the one complaint I heard about Doom was the grenades didn't have enough impact in their sound design. Oh, the new Doom, the 2016.
Okay.
The fact that was the one complaint I heard fairly regularly was like, oh, okay, I guess it does matter a lot to people that this have a audible impact.
I think it's one of those things people tend to take for granted, and it's not until they have an experience where it's not there that they start thinking like, why does my shotgun sound bad? Like it's killing things, but it's not satisfying to use. And then then you go back, like you can play like the original Doom, or Dusk is a really good example. Where like you use it and you're like, damn, that's like, it's just like satisfying to shoot, even though I'm not even if I'm not hitting anything. It's just like got a nice satisfying weight to the sound and animation of the gun that like that's a big part of the player experience for first-person shooters.
And unlike voice acting or voice work we've been talking about, a lot of the little sound design, which is how it feels and how the gun sounds, you usually don't notice it as like unless you're looking for it. But when it's missing, you notice it.
Yeah.
Like a lot of little things, it's when it's working, you shouldn't notice it. You should just feel like you're having fun.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of the issue in general is silent running. The concept of silent running is basically you're making things work really well and you don't get the credit for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big shame. And I think that like now that there's a lot more focus because video games is like such an enormous industry, there's a lot more focus on these categories, and it's also a lot more noticeable when smaller games don't have these things that like I like to think that like bigger titles or even smaller titles that go the extra mile, when they have them, they are noticed for and rewarded for it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think as people are becoming a little more aware of what goes into making a game, like there's the gaming subculture has grown to a point, and there's been enough interaction with developers to where we know like all these different fields, different little bits that go into it, and so it gets more praise nowadays.
Yeah, for sure.
As people become a little more educated on the ins and outs. So then it makes everyone feel like they're an expert, which is its own problem.
Well, yeah, and that's why I tried to approach, especially this one, I tried to approach it and say, like, as a player, these are the feelings that are elicited by certain sounds, which is a good thing to know that, like, this is the feeling you're giving players, as opposed to, like, there are times when you, like Homeworld is the example, like, you kind of just feel nothing from, there are sounds, but, like, it doesn't really add to the experience per se. Like, whether they're there or not there and replaced with, like, a slightly different impact sound really doesn't matter because they're not evocative.
That better be in this video title.
It's going to be called evocative sound design. If you had to pick one game that you would consider to having the best sound design that you've played, or I guess are aware of, what would you pick and why?
Let me open my Steam list. I want to default to StarCraft because I'm going to say that for everything, but I know that's actually not the case. That's just because of what I have in front of me. Looking through. So the most, I'm actually thinking back, some of the Nintendo properties I feel like did it really, I'm thinking of the ones that left a lasting impact on me. I could recognize every single sound from Ocarina of Time, for example. The way things impacted, the way things got pushed back when you hit an enemy. Everything felt like it had an impact on me. I don't know. I'd have to go with some of the Nintendo titles. Metroid Prime being another one.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Then let's stop on that one then. Because Metroid Prime is in my top of all games of all time list. Metroid Prime, I feel like, is less about the combat noise, though it is good, but way more about the atmospheric ambient sound.
I was just about to bring that up. Yeah, mostly for the ambience. Like I listen to and the soundtrack is very background in that game. Yet I still listen to it very regularly.
It's so good. I like Phendrana Drift's like remixes are my jam. They're so good.
I frustrate my wife because I play that every time there's like a big snowstorm.
Yeah, well, that was going to be. I wasn't sure how much time you had or how long you wanted to spend on this because there were two pieces left. One is going through like what are like the top specific games we would use as examples, and like the ambiance that kind of sets the climate or the atmosphere of games, as opposed to like unit sound design and building sound design.
I can go as long as we need, and that leads to something I actually was thinking about of. Depending on the genre is really dependent on what the focus needs to be. Like there's ambient sounds in StarCraft. It doesn't matter that much if they're there or not because it's RTS. But the fact it's in an adventure game like Metroid Prime or really any kind of exploratory game, that's your like number one. The ambiance needs to be on point and tell you what the zone you're in is.
Yes.
And also, I'd even say the danger, like one thing Prime 1 I thought did really well was the ambiance sound design informed the danger level of the zone you're in. Phazon mines and impact crater. Like just through that weird Geiger counter, like zapping sound, you knew this was a dangerous place. Don't go in that blue stuff.
Yeah, they completely nailed it. And I think that like real-time strategy could take. I mean, I think a lot of focus is on the music. I wonder if there were instances within real-time strategy where ambient noise could be used in better effect as opposed to, or in lieu of music. Not 100% of the time, but like maybe some missions could be like if it's more of like a spooky, like Into the Flames or Into Darkness. Yeah. What was it? Into the Flames? Like that one.
Into Darkness, yeah.
Yeah, if there were just no music to that one, but it was just like flames crackling and like spooky, yeah.
Nova Covert Ops actually does this with Night Terrors, though it has music, of course, which kind of overlaps it. But starting the mission, there's like it intentionally does a softer soundtrack, and there's an ambiance of like what sounds like frogs croaking. Like it intentionally tries to set an atmosphere through the ambiance. Mm-hmm. Whether it really works, because I doubt most people have noticed it is up for debate. But there's definitely an attempt at it.
Well, that's one of the maps I thought of, and I was also thinking of the Borea map with the snow on your buildings, and there was definitely some background, like howling winds a little bit on that one too. Like it's there. I think this is the perfect example of silent running, where like your typical consumer doesn't notice it, but it impacts them. And like Metroid Prime might be one where I think everybody kind of recognizes like the ambiance is super important, but there's so many instances where it exists that it adds to the atmosphere, but you don't really think about it or care because it's doing what it needs to do, which is eliciting an emotion, not making you notice it for what it actually is.
I definitely agree. But yeah, no, that's one. It's a very background thing, but very important. I think is the
yeah,
long and short of it.
All right, so you had said Ocarina of Time, which I agree with, and I think Ocarina of Time is more like, it's like a near-perfect sum of its parts, as opposed to like, it's not so much that the sound design is like stupendous above other aspects, it's the fact that it combines so well with every other piece of the game.
Oh, actually, so going through the Steam list, one recently I thought, I picked it up recently and been playing a bit of it, I thought did it really well. The multiplayer of Battlefront 2, the new one, really nailed, like, just the impact of everything around you, the chaos and quiet of the battlefield, to put it that way.
Okay.
And I think the way they did it was through how sounds doing really well how sounds travel. You can definitely tell when a fight is happening far away or close by, because in close by it's just chaos, explosions everywhere. But when you're like away from the front in a trench, you hear it, but it's more soft, subdued. And that, I think, is for that kind of like large-scale battlefield. It's really the level of sounds, like depending on distance. I think that's a prime example of it.
Yeah.
That's one I just recently thought of. Let me go through and look through others. There's a lot where I really like the music, but I wouldn't say I like I'm looking at Civ of like, oh, I like all the Civ soundtracks, but I wouldn't really say it had great, like, the sound design doesn't really integrate into the gameplay.
Yeah, and well, in terms of music, I think there's a big difference. Well, okay, there's 3 levels of music. There's no music, which is, then there's persistent music, which isn't necessarily like having it at the right times, but it's generally there and meant to like, give you something to listen to. And then there's like music that fits exactly what's happening to like really elicit a strong emotion from the music, which is like, you can kind of, I don't know if people listening are familiar with like, you can get like frisson from music, which is kind of like that tingly feeling. I guess it's kind of like when people are like I don't understand ASMR, but I think the feeling of that people get that enjoy listening to that, I think that's what that is.
Oh, and I'm looking through a really simple one that I didn't even think of that I think nails ambient sound design and all the like. Minecraft. Minecraft, I think, just does it fantastic in general.
Oh yeah,
everything is like at all levels. It has very memorable music. There's a whole mechanic based on like how sound travels through stone and the like. So like it adds to the atmosphere while adding to gameplay. Like that I think is up there for me. I wouldn't put it in the top 5, but it's definitely up there.
Well, not just that, but that's one where music is used sparingly, but very effectively. There's not always a soundtrack playing in that game, but occasionally, like the sun's coming up, and it just starts playing a very calming, soothing, and like joyful soundtrack that it's like it just makes you feel like relaxed, and you're like, I'm building stuff. I'm gonna blow off the top of this mountain, stuff like that. Whereas like when you're in the Nether and you get those like ambient noises from the monsters and stuff, like it's real, and then it's got like a creepy ambient sound to it. Like they definitely put a lot of work into that.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And also even just exploring, because there's ambient like creepy stings if you're near one of the temples that are buried underground, and that's been as effective to scare me as any horror game. But Minecraft can get genuinely scary, and it's just a bunch of block things, but the sound like really does it.
For sure. I'm glad you brought that one up, because I just didn't even think about that, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I didn't think of that till I went through the many. Jeez.
My top one is really easy for me to think of, but everything after that, I think like a number 2 would be difficult. But like, obviously, Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne. Like, I in terms of sound design, I feel like probably they're not, in terms of music, they're not all bangers, but the idea is music is super sparing. It's only in like your hub or in extremely special circumstances, like when you fight bosses and stuff. And in a sense, I think that's good because it allows ambient sounds to take over for when you're like adventuring. And the whole point of the game is it's meant to elicit a sense of like almost paranoia, but a sense of like, I want to keep exploring, like, just a little bit further, but I don't know what's around the next corner, but, like, maybe just a little bit further. I don't want to have to turn around. Maybe the next bonfire is right there, but, like, there's no music to kind of, like, swell up and get you into, like, a combat zone. You don't know. So, like, when you're in the Undead Burg, it's mostly just, like, crackling fire because it's, like, a broken-down city. And when you're in Blighttown, it's mostly just, like, dripping in the background and, like, wood creaking. And, like, when you're in the swamp, it's mostly just, like, you pedaling through the swamp. There's no music. So when there is music, it's, like, way more impactful. And, like, like, real shit's happening. But, like, I think that the lack of music is actually really good there. But it's not just... I'm not saying, like, just never do music. What I mean is, like, if you're thinking about using it sparingly, really think about if the rest of your sound design is eliciting a certain type of emotion. Like, again... that sort of adventure. There's like the Legend of Zelda adventuring, and then there's like the Dark Souls adventuring, which is meant to be more. The Zelda adventuring is like, heroism, pushing forward, combat, getting rewards, opening chests. Whereas Dark Souls is more like, be really careful because anything will get you at any moment. So like the fact that there's no music really like adds to that pressure almost.
The lack of music's just like any other tool where it's like, if you use it correctly, it's super impactful. But you obviously can't just like, I'm not going to use music at all.
Yeah.
For any game.
Well, and the last part of Dark Souls I'd want to point out, which if I don't know if you're familiar with this, but viewers who played it might, is Ash Lake, the zone in Dark Souls 1, which is like underneath the world that like takes you to the remnants of like the age prior to the age that you're living in, is the only zone that has music that isn't Firelink Shrine and isn't a boss fight. And what that does, and the music as well, is like really like mystic almost. And what it does is it's a super hidden zone. Most people know that it's there now because it's been out for so long. But what it does is it just gives it an air of importance and just this level of like awe and mysticism, because the zone is like, the world of Dark Souls is like, it's like built around a big tree. And then you go under the tree, and then you can like look out, and there's like hundreds of other trees far in the distance, and it just kind of, and then the music's playing, and it's like, oh, and it kind of gets you thinking like, oh my god, like I'm just playing around this one tree, but like there's all these other trees, and not only that, but I'm like in a past world right now, like I'm in the remnants of like a past world, and there's like these giant skulls. And these like and you're like, maybe those trees over there, like, is that like that's like a whole different place? And it just like, again, it elicits a feeling of like discovery and awe and mysticism.
Right. Yeah. Using the music to both scare you or like keep you on edge, and also like give you wonder when you do find something.
Yeah. All right, I'm done with Dark Souls. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. I feel like I'm learning a lot all of Dark Souls from you now.
Well, I think you would love it. You don't even have to play the game. I think you would absolutely love the lore of the world if you look into it.
I'm definitely gonna get around to playing it. I've been on a kick of, well, I'm on my redo of all the StarCraft canon right now. But after I do that, I'm gonna get through that and or Horizon Zero Dawn, and then probably Dark Souls next. I've been meaning to get through my Steam list. Though on your point of like no music, actually, I can't believe I didn't think of this example. The one I've been playing lately with friends is Phantasmaphobia, and that game is the whole thing is carried by its ambient sound design. That literally its whole gameplay is you're hunting ghosts, and you got to listen for some cues and audio cues, and there's no music, but just like the act of a single phone going off or like something just keeps you on edge, and you don't know you're in danger. Like there's no music to tell you you're in danger. There's audio cues for that. But if you hear footsteps and the like, you know to run. And I've never had a game with just so few sound effects really use them as effectively, and use the lack of music as effectively to both catch you off guard and give you a sense of danger.
And it scares the crap out of you when there is an alarming sound.
So, hilariously, when you actually get caught, in my opinion, is the least scary part of that game, because they play a music sting that gets you, and it scares you for a second, and then it's a creepy thing. But by that point, you've been caught by the ghost. It's like, oh, it's a kind of disturbing looking thing now. It's the tension that leads up to it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's a good example lately of how lack of music can be used to really great effect.
For sure.
Nothing in there.
The staying on music as well briefly is for first-person shooters. Andrew Hulshult is like incredible because he kind of does a great mix of like combat music, but then also like ambient sound and music for like when you're just casually going through a level, and then like you enter an arena and it kind of picks up. But like he's incredible. Like he does a lot of like the throwback FPS titles these days, and they also picked him up to do Doom Eternal after Mick Gordon failed to meet his contractual obligations for the base game.
Ooh.
But Mick Gordon was incredible because he just did like really, really great metal for the combat of Doom 2016 and then Doom Eternal. But like they picked up Andrew Hulshult and who was it? He did it with another person for the DLC, but Andrew Hulshult in particular, like he made the soundtrack for Dusk and Amid Evil, which are two really, really good examples of great sound and music design in particular. So, check those out for good examples.
Yeah, no, I love the 2016 sound. I actually just picked up Eternal in the last sale. I haven't played it yet. I'm excited to treat that.
It's a lot different.
I'm told, but it's from what people have described and complained about, it sounds like differences I'd actually probably enjoy. So.
Oh yeah, I like it more. I'm just saying, like it's one of those where like I play it and I think like I don't think I can go back. I'm sure
Yeah.
I could, but like I don't know if I'd be able to go back to 2016. Like the changes are overwhelming at first, but when you master them, it's like, whew, it's great.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. That's another one I'm excited for. So many games, so many.
I know. There's a lot.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to nail down a lot of like, because I think a lot of them do them good in different ways too. Some of them are more subtle about, like, you remember a lot of the more bombastic sound effects, like the Doom shotgun will always stick in my head forever. But there's something to be said about intentionally also making a sound. But I can't really give good examples because.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think like Armies of Exego, for example. The archers, like the elven archers, they're like the sound of the bow and arrow is so pathetic, and it kind of reflects the fact that it's doing very little damage. So I agree. Not everything has to be like kaboom, but like at least it needs to be reflecting what it's doing.
Yeah, every sound should have an intention. Like it should ever, and a lot of, especially cheaper games, and it's when you're just starting, of course, like you're going to make a lot of mistakes like that, where you use sets of sound and kind of just throw it in without really thinking or caring where things are supposed to go. But yeah.
Feel like we could, talk about this. Like I could go through every game I've ever played and talk about this, but I think we hit a lot of like the main. Like, I think a lot of the examples that we wanted to use, and like also comparing and contrasting them to examples of things that don't necessarily do it quite as good.
Definitely, I think we hit a very broad. Yeah, this was one when like I mentioned when we touched on it briefly. I'm like, oh man, we could do like an hour or 2 hours on this.
Yep.
There's so much to say.
Well, the first 20 minutes was us just legitimately playing the Mutation.
Well.
In the future, I'll get a system for the recording that's better, such that we can just record it without sound, and then we'll just go straight to the juicy part.
But so genuinely, you all out in the internet land, I actually do want to hear what you all like, examples of what you all think are some of the best sound design in games. Because, like, thinking back, there's like, oh, actually, there's some I want to check out that I probably haven't. Like, I wanted to dig into this more. So if you all got examples, I actually do want to hear them.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of. I've seen a lot of really good comments that I saw from like our Star Wars talk and then our asymmetry talk. Like I can't respond to all of them, or like sometimes like a comment stands on its own and I enjoy reading it, but I'm like I don't need to respond. Like it's not asking for a response, but like I just want to let you all know I read all of them and I enjoy them. So thank you.
Yeah, man, there's some good ones. I feel like I've gotten to know a lot of you.
Cool.
But yeah.
Well, I suppose that'll wrap this one up. Let us know what you think. Also, let us know if there's any like topics, if there are like maybe franchises you think it'd be cool for us to talk about. I think that we're probably both pretty familiar with a lot of things in like the fictional, different universes or sci-fi fantasy type stuff. So could be cool.
If you all got suggestions, I'm happy to try stuff out. I've been on a kick of trying new games, so I'm willing to try it.
Yeah, likewise. Sometimes it's nice to have a little push.
Yep. So cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I'll talk to you next week. We'll talk to you all next week. Thanks for watching.
All right. Yeah. See ya.